I love manatees. I know a lot of you do as well. And there has been an unusual mortality rate, unusually high. And so we want to find out why and what we can do. So I am joined by Patrick Rose, aquatic biologist and executive director of Save the Manatees. So thank you for joining us. And what can you tell us about this high mortality rate?
Well, it's good to be here. And there's really quite an alarming mortality event going on for manatees, especially on the east coast of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Since January 1st, we've lost more than 575 manatees statewide.
Wow.
And that's about little more than three times what we would have expected, and even in winter times when manatees are more stressed from the cold. On the east coast of Florida, though, just since the 1st of December in 2020 through the end of March in 2021, we've had more than 300 manatees die just in Brevard County waters alone.
Wow.
And on the entire east coast, we've had almost 600 manatees die altogether. And the main cause of that is primarily starvation that was induced because of the massive loss of seagrass over actually several years of time that was contributed to too much nutrient pollution from man in terms of our wastewater, whether it comes from failed septic systems or poor treatment of the water quality. And so that caused algal blooms that shaded the seagrass and caused the loss of the seagrass, the manatee's food.
That is so sad. And that was going to be my next question. What's causing this? Because I think a lot of people initially think boaters, but you said the boaters are actually helping.
Yes, very concerned boaters actually see a manatee that's listing to the side or breathing rapidly, or maybe even has beached itself up on the shoreline, which is unusual behavior. And they'll call that into the Fish and Wildlife Commission's hotline. And we've rescued almost 75 manatees already this year alone.
Wow.
We have what's called the Manatee Rescue and Rehabilitation Partnership. That's made up the Fish and Wildlife Commission, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and many of our zoos and aquariums are in that as well. So Jacksonville Zoo, for example, a little to the north, the Miami Aquarium, Zoo Tampa, and SeaWorld of Florida are some of those key rescue facilities that will help nurse manatees back to health.
And you were talking about restoration. So is there anything that we can do to help this situation, or is this a Mother Nature event that just needs to, fix itself on its own?
Well, first and foremost, we got to keep rescuing those sick manatees so they don't die from starvation. Right. But in addition to that, we've got to stop the pollution. We've got to stop the wastewater from getting in and causing those algal blooms, which nobody likes. It not only does it kill the seagrass and ultimately is causing manatees to die, but it really is a problem for tourism in Florida and so forth. So we've got to stop what we're putting in. We've got to get back out to what we've put in that's too much, muck removal, things like that. We need to look at encouraging oyster planting in key locations, possibly even some clam reintroductions. Those are filter feeders, can help clean up the water. But then there's just a lot of monitoring both of the health of the water quality, but also how the manatees themselves are doing. We're flying aerial surveys, looking at where the manatees are, where they're going, where they're finding food, and so forth, and giving a relative understanding of their health.
Well, that's good that we can actually track that. That's another way we can help. So touch on really quickly about the Indian River and how that's kind of being a part of all of this.
So the Indian River Lagoon itself is about 151 miles long along the east coast of Florida, from South Volusia County all the way down to Martin County. And there have been really major losses of seagrass going on for more than 10 years. And yet it's getting worse. And it got quite a lot worse during the COVID periods too.
Oh, wow.
When some of the manatee research that was planned didn't happen because of COVID. So it kind of caught folks a little more off guard, even though we knew there were losses in seagrass. It got that much worse just over the last year and a half, for example. The area to the north is really from human wastewater getting into it, whether it's through groundwater or through the runoff into the system. Further south, it's coming from wastewaters that end up coming from fertilizer-enriched waters from Lake Okeechobee, discharged through the St. Lucie River system into the Indian River Lagoon there. So it's a little different in each part, but the whole lagoon has been suffering from major algal blooms repeated one after another because of too much human waste getting into that system.
Oh, well, I hope we can at least try to do our part to limit some of that pollution. Is there anything else you want to mention that we didn't get to talk about, or at least tell us where people can find more information?
Well, of course, they can go to savethemanatee.org. We have a lot of information there about the algal blooms, the sources of the problems, what we're doing in terms of the research and health assessments for manatees, how you can help with the rescues and rehabilitation effort to make sure each and every sick and injured manatee is getting the treatment it needs. But more than that, contact your legislators for the state of Florida, contact your congressional representatives, even the president, because this is so big. We need them all working together. And we have reached out to each and every one of those agencies. We're supporting them where we can, but we're also trying to get extra funding and staffing involved, because this is not near over. And in fact, it could be much worse next winter than it was this winter, because the last winter in 2021 was not that severe cold winter. If we have that on top of this severe forage shortage from the loss of seagrass, we could have even greater, more catastrophic loss of manatees.
Oh my gosh, I hate to hear that. So of course, those are all the resources, but if you want to watch this segment again or get more information, of course, head over to firstcoastliving.net.